a bright-eyed volleyball player finds love online. However, meeting the man in person leads her and her family to a nightmare she never imagined. On her birthday, Annie receives a new laptop from her parents Will and Lynn. Excited, she stays up late while chatting with her online friend Charlie. Once school starts, Annie works hard during the volleyball tryouts. After classes, Serena invites her to a party and tells her to bring her brother since the popular woman likes him. This excites Annie, so she shares this with Charlie over their chat. Later, she nervously takes a photo of herself to send to him. The next day, she gets accepted into the volleyball team. But instead of joining her mother to celebrate, the teen rushes to her laptop to give Charlie the good news. When he congratulates her and compliments her photo, Annie asks him to send a picture of himself. However, Charlie suddenly reveals that he's older than he told her, making her nervous. Despite her suspicion, Annie claims to understand why he lied since she doesn't want to lose her friend. Just then, Charlie sends his photos to her, and the woman smiles to see the man's attractive face. Soon, Annie attends Serena's party, but Peter can't make it since he's preparing for college, disappointing the popular girl. Ultimately, Annie goes home early, admitting to her father that she wasn't comfortable when her schoolmates started discussing sensual things. Annie still wants to hang out with them since she wants to have friends, but Will advises her to be herself instead of conforming to get friends. However, Annie just thinks that her father doesn't understand what it's like to be in school. Retreating to her room, she continues chatting with Charlie, noting how he's the only one she can talk to. The guy reciprocates this sentiment and hints at his romantic feelings for the woman. One day, Annie shops with her friend Brittany. Lynn picks them up, noticing that they were also with the popular girls. Annie admits that Serena convinced her to buy something sultry to look more attractive, but her mother disagrees about doing such things for guys. That night, Annie chats with Charlie, who suddenly confesses that he's older than he previously said, alarming her. Suddenly, the man calls, so she demands to know why he keeps lying. Soon enough, Charlie charms his way to regain Annie's trust, making the innocent woman fall for him. On the day her parents take Peter to college, Annie shares the event with Charlie. To her surprise, the man uses this chance to invite her to meet up. After much thought, she goes to the mall, nervous and excited to meet him. However, Charlie isn't the man in the photos he sent, and he's much older than he last told her. This brings her to tears, so Charlie claims he lied about his age because he was scared that she wouldn't understand. The man insists that he found his soulmate in her, reminding her that he's still the person she's been talking to, so his age shouldn't matter. Moments later, Brittany, who's working at one of the stores, sees Annie walking with the older man. The woman ends up at an ice cream shop with Charlie. At first, she feels awkward but soon relaxes when he gets her to talk about her family. Charlie compliments her and regains her trust, eventually convincing her to let him give her a ride. While in the car, the man gives her a gift, and Annie gets uncomfortable to see it's an alluring outfit. Despite this, Annie is compelled to agree to try it out for him, so she joins him in his motel room and dons the outfit. The distressed woman then hurries to change back into her clothes, but Charlie convinces her to sit with him. Scared, Annie is frozen when he starts touching her. The man then proceeds to take what he wants despite the woman's protest. To make matters worse, Annie is unaware of a hidden camera in the room. That evening, Annie is distraught when Charlie refuses to respond to her as she desperately clings to the hope that her horrible experience means something. Days pass and Annie falls apart, thinking that Charlie has abandoned her. Brittany confronts her about her behavior and assumes that Charlie was the older man she was with at the mall. Annie dodges her questions, making Brittany realize what her friend went through. However, Annie denies that it was something terrible, defending that she and Charlie are in love. This doesn't convince Brittany, so she soon reports what happened to the school. This gets Annie escorted out of the school by the police, which draws her schoolmates' attention. Her parents are soon notified about what happened, so they rush to the hospital where Annie is being examined. When the family is reunited, the hospital counselor, Gail Friedman, and FBI agent Doug Tate introduce themselves to them as they're handling Annie's case. Officers later collect evidence from the family's home while Doug instructs Annie to get Charlie to chat with her again, hoping to trap him. However, the disillusioned woman refuses, so Lynn suggests that she just tell Charlie how she feels. This works as Charlie soon calls calls Annie, so she answers the phone while the officers trace the call. However, the man catches on quickly, so he hangs up and blocks her. This breaks Annie's heart, so she storms off. Will becomes haunted by the idea of his daughter's experience that he spaces out during a meeting the next day. Because of this, he researches ways to find Charlie. One day, Annie attends therapy with Gail, though she insists that she doesn't need this. She points out that her schoolmates sleep around, so her experience shouldn't be a big deal. Annie still believes that she's in love with Charlie and that her parents would accept him if they knew him. When their age difference is brought up, she repeats Charlie's statement that since they're soulmates, it doesn't matter. During this, Will is at the airport, having skipped work to meet with a private investigator. Doug calls him and reports that the motel didn't have any record of Charlie since he paid in cash. When they traced his IP address, it led them to another country, hinting that Charlie was using a VPN. This means that Charlie had everything planned out. That night, Lynn checks on her daughter, sharing that Brittany is upset since Annie won't talk to her. However, Annie blames Brittany for ruining her relationship. Just then, Will arrives and shows his wife that he found access to a criminal database. He's gathered a list of criminals that fit Charlie's description, so he asks Annie to help identify the man. The woman vehemently refuses, stressing that no crime was committed on her. This upsets her parents, seeing that their daughter is still under the man's spell. Despite this, Will proceeds with his investigation, even visiting the home of one of the registered criminals. In another therapy session, Annie rants about how her parents treat her like a fool for going out with Charlie. Gail wonders what she'll do if Charlie talks to her again, and Annie's mood lightens at the thought. Concerned, Gail encourages Annie to talk about what happened in the motel. Hesitantly, the woman admits that during the experience, she felt like a spectator. The therapist explains that when they feel threatened, some people psychologically distance themselves from the situation to protect themselves. The implication angers Annie, so she ends their session early. Meanwhile, Doug leads an operation to arrest a suspect. When he calls Will, however, he reports that they got the wrong guy. They suspected the man since he used the same chat room and had similar conversations with his target. Having compared this with Annie's chat history, learning that they have access to this, Will requests to see the transcript, but Doug refuses as it would be against Annie's privacy. When the detective goes to the restroom, however, Will eyes his suitcase with interest. He soon hurries to Lynn and gives her copies of the transcript he stole from the agent's bag. The mother is horrified to read the sensitive parts of the chat, refusing to believe that her daughter wrote them. However, Will insists that they need to confront Annie about this behavior. Lynn refuses, knowing that this will just push Annie away. Despite her concerns, the husband is driven to take matters into his own hands. As he's leaving, Doug calls him, ordering him to return the transcripts. He warns that stealing them is a crime, but the father just promises to return them eventually. One night, Will attends a company launch party but becomes uncomfortable with their campaign using youthful models that look like his daughter. Panicked, he leaves. Late at night, Lynn finds her husband chatting with someone he believes might be Charlie. She's bothered by this, but her husband justifies that it's a way to draw the criminals out. Seeing him treat this as something normal, Lynn shakes her head and leaves. Moments later, Will checks on Annie and looks through her phone to ensure that she's not talking to strangers again. When he leaves, his daughter wakes up and finds her phone unlocked, raising her suspicion. On another night, Lynn announces that Peter might visit soon. Annie insists on not letting her brother know what happened to her, so her mother promises not to tell. Soon, Annie returns to school, hoping to find a sense of normality. This gives Brittany a chance to talk to her, but Annie insists that she ruined her and her family's life. That night, Will asks about Annie's day, hoping to have a normal conversation with her. His daughter is passive with her answers, so Will directly asks if Charlie has contacted her. This makes the woman defensive, so she dares him to check her phone. Will asks if she's okay with it, but Annie stresses that she's not. When her father claims that it should be okay if there's nothing to hide, Annie throws her phone in anger. Will points out that she lied to them and should have told them when she discovered that Charlie was older. He questions why she even got into Charlie's car after learning he was in his 30s. Listening to all the decisions that led her to that motel, Annie breaks down and begs her father to leave her alone. Despite this, the father demands answers. So Annie yells that things would have been okay if they stopped bothering with what happened. She argues that Will is the one acting strange since she knows he checked her phone and tracked down criminals online. The man defends that he's trying to find Charlie, but Annie again insists that he's not like those criminals. Will is horrified that his daughter is protecting the man who took her innocence, so he visits Gail the next day, hoping that she can give him insight into what's going on in Annie's mind. However, the therapist asserts that it's against her client's privacy. Will admits that he can't stop thinking about what happened and even dreamed about beating up Charlie. Gail asks how he'd feel if Charlie is arrested, and Will admits that he'd be angry because he wants to punish the man with his own hands. He's also angry that he didn't know what was happening and that his own daughter lied to him. As the man tears up, Gail concludes that he blames himself for what happened. She reminds him that they can't control everything, even with their children. What they can only do is to support them when they need it. Despite Gail's words, Will can't stop himself from wanting justice. He later goes to a weapons store, then visits the house of a local criminal he'd found. There, he beats the man before shooting him. However, this is all in his head as he's still at the weapons store and ultimately decides not to purchase anything. One day, he picks up Peter from the station, but his son can't help but notice his troubled look. That night, the family gathers with their relatives for a Halloween dinner. Peter uses this time to talk to his sister, though she becomes suspicious when he assures her that he loves her. Her grandmother and aunt then try to be extra hospitable to Annie, but the woman catches on and sarcastically comments on it. To lighten the mood, her grandfather asks if Peter has a girlfriend yet. Because of this, Annie pointedly asks her father if Peter can have a relationship. When Will refuses to encourage the topic, she loudly asks her brother if he's had experience with a woman yet. Will scolds her for this, but Annie argues that he's told their relatives about her relationship, so she should be able to ask about her brothers. She reminds them that she didn't want Peter to know what happened, yet she knows her father told him. Pissed, the woman storms off. On another night, Doug reports to the family that they found a DNA match from the samples they got. However, it matched with unsolved cases of 3 similar crimes, so they still don't have a suspect. This proves that Charlie has done the same thing to 3 other women. Still in denial, Annie clarifies that they're probably his ex-girlfriends, so Doug explains that they were much younger than the man and reported the crimes done to them. When Annie learns more about the others, her belief that her experience was out of love shatters. Stunned, she excuses herself to the bathroom but sneaks out to meet with Gail. She tells her therapist that Charlie had other women. This makes her realize that she wasn't special to him, though she thinks it means there's something wrong with her. Gail assures her that she's not at fault while Annie breaks down, finally admitting to herself that Charlie only used her. The therapist cradles the traumatized woman in her arms as she weeps. Soon, the parents take their daughter back home. After Lynn tucks her to bed, she cries about how broken her daughter feels just because someone wanted a few minutes with her. During this, Will keeps looking through the documents about Charlie. Lynn berates her husband for obsessing over the man instead of looking after his daughter. Will defends that putting the man behind bars is the right thing to do, and since Annie won't talk to him, this is the only thing he can do. Lynn, however, thinks this is pointless if they can't even comfort their own daughter through the ordeal. As Annie tries to get her life back, her family watches while she is competing at a volleyball tournament one day. During this, however, Will notices one of the local criminals he'd found taking pictures of the team. He confronts him and starts a fight, only to discover that the man is just another player's father who looks like the criminal he saw. Having her father go berserk at her school, Annie is humiliated, so she yells at him at home. Will feels guilty and admits that he doesn't know what to say, so Annie clarifies that there's nothing they can say to make things better since her life is ruined. On another day, Annie discovers that some bullies made a website to mock her. Because of this, she races back to her house devastated. She hides in the bathroom, avoiding her father from seeing her. Believing that her life is over, Annie lays down in the tub with medicine bottles next to her. Suddenly, Lynn calls Will, panicked as Brittany told her what happened at school. She tells her husband to check if Annie went home, so the father hurries and discovers the bathroom locked. Scared, the man breaks down the door and finds his daughter barely conscious. After Annie is discharged from the hospital, they get Brittany to stay with her through the night. Lynn blames her husband's lack of empathy for what happened, so she treats him coldly after things settle down. In the morning, Annie wakes up and sees Will on their lawn. Having not slept that night, she checks on him, and he shares that he was thinking of how she didn't get scared during her first time in the pool since she trusted him. He was proud that Annie always believed in people, even when she got older. However, Will thinks he failed since he couldn't protect her on that day with Charlie. Charlie. He is heartbroken that Annie no longer trusts people, even though she loves. The man breaks down at the thought of his daughter wanting to end her life, so he begs forgiveness. Finally hearing her father's thoughts, Annie embraces him, and the two cry in each other's arms. This begins to mend their bond as they admit the burdens that have plagued them since the nightmare started. Meanwhile, a family in a distant town enjoys their day at a farmer's market. The son takes the camera from his father, who turns out to be Charlie. Just then, a student greets Charlie and introduces him to his parents as his physics teacher, Graham Weston. In turn, the man introduces his wife and son, who are utterly oblivious to his sinister secrets.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.